What we learned on day 3 of Tranche 3, phase 1 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry. Today we heard from 4 barristers and 1 solicitor. It started with Imran Khan, representing Suresh Grover of the monitoring group. It was really pointed out the way in which the police viewed community organisations that were fighting against racism as a bigger problem than the racist far right that was targeting them. He then went on to represent the Blacklist support group. There was criticism about the fact that Dave Smith, the secretary of the group, has not been called to give evidence to the inquiry. The inquiry has been fundamentally flawed in its approach to blacklisting. That needs to change. Then he represented the opening statements of Baroness Doreen Lawrence, the mother of Stephen Lawrence, who was murdered in a racist attack. She pointed out how rotten the police were, how the 2023 Casey report had not resulted in any changes, and her disappointment with that. Then we heard the opening statements on behalf of Michael Mansfield KC, described as the devil incarnate by SDS officers. He pointed out the way in which the lawyers were being targeted for just doing their jobs. That was followed by James Wood KC, who gave opening statements on behalf of a number of Black Justice family campaigns and Movement for Justice. Particularly these stories of real horrific trauma and violence, deeply heartbreaking. He talked about the Ricky Reel Justice campaign, how that was targeted by undercover police. Michael Menson family campaign, how that had to undergo significant police spying, largely from HN81, cover named Dave Hagan, who is still not meant to be giving evidence to the inquiry, has weaseled out of giving evidence in an appalling display of mishandling by the inquiry. He then gave the opening statements on behalf of the Movement for Justice, which was targeted for no good reason. We then heard from James Scobie KC, who was representing Youth Against Racism in Europe and Militant Tendency. This opening statement really took direct aim at Peter Francis, questioning how truthful his reports had been, particularly when he was an undercover officer. The fact that there was no objective use of a lot of his reports, the fictional nature of his reports about violence by activists. It pointed out, though Peter Francis's position as a whistleblower is really welcome, the reality is that while he was an undercover officer, he perpetuated the exaggerated risk which so many of the SDS officers and managers did. They need to do this exaggerated risk to explain away the real reasons for the unit, to make their secretive and paranoid nature make sense. After that, we heard from Kirsten Heaven, representing the non-state, non-police corps participants. There was technical problems when she was giving the opening statement, so it got taken over by the solicitor, Lydia Delgado. I would say it was welcome that the Met Police are now finally admitting that they got it wrong over the SDS, and that was just not just in hindsight, but within the morals of the day. There was a lot of criticism of the way the inquiry has handled itself, really pointing out that we need to hear from the politicians who directed the unit, the tasking that came, particularly over the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, and the way in which so many people up the chain of command, senior leadership members within the Metropolitan Police, were both fully aware of the SDS and lavished praise upon it. This inquiry has made many missteps, not least failing to call activists who were ideally placed to help them with understanding what the undercover officers did. But even worse, failing to force undercover officers who were accused of serious wrongdoing from appearing at the inquiry. There was a lot of anger today. The inquiry starts with its in-person evidence hearings this Friday. We'll be outside from 9 a.m. having a protest. Join us near the steps of St Paul's Cathedral. See you there.